The rain was falling hard on New Horizon, a human colony world on the edge of alien space. Sarah stood at her small metal door. Listening to the wind slam against the building walls, she had been alone for months, working long hours at the mining port, living a life that felt too quiet. She never expected that tonight would change everything. The knock came suddenly. 3 loud bangs that echoed through her small living space. She froze, her heart beating faster. No one visited her at this hour. She stepped closer to the door, pressing her ear against the cold metal. Outside, the wind roared, but there was something else, a voice, low and urgent, calling her name. When she opened the door, she saw him, a tall, alien man, skin pale like moonlight. Dressed in a dark, weather-worn coat, his eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. The way some alien races carried their own inner light in his arms was a woman, human, but covered in bruises and dirt. Her clothes were torn, her hair matted, her breathing weak. "She is yours now," the alien man said, his voice cold and sharp. Sarah stared at him, confused and angry. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "She is my wife," he said. "Or was, until today. She has a dirty heritage." The words came out like poison. Sarah felt her stomach twist. She knew what that meant in this part of the galaxy. Dirty heritage was a cruel term for people with mixed human-alien blood. The alien man looked down at his wife like she was nothing. Then, without another word, he pushed her toward Sarah, turned, and walked away into the storm. Sarah caught the woman before she fell. Her skin was cold, her eyes half closed. Sarah pulled her inside, shutting the door against the howling wind. She could still hear the alien man's footsteps fading away. It felt like the sound of something important leaving or something dangerous just beginning. For a moment, Sarah just stood there, looking at the woman now sitting weakly on her floor. She could see the shape of alien features in her face, slightly longer eyes, a faint shimmer to her skin. She must have been beautiful once, before the neglect, before the abandonment. Sarah poured her a cup of warm water and sat beside her. "What's your name?" Sarah asked softly. The woman's lips trembled. "Lena," she whispered, her voice so quiet it almost vanished in the hum of the room heater. Lena looked around the small home, as if trying to decide if she was safe. Her hands shook as she held the cup. Sarah could see the scars, some old, some fresh. She wanted to ask what had happened, but she also knew that sometimes it was better to let the silence breathe first. Hours passed. Outside, the storm kept pounding against the colony buildings. Sarah gave Lena her bed and sat on the couch, unable to sleep. She kept thinking about the alien man's expression, the way he had spoken, like Lena was some kind of unwanted object. But why bring her here? Why to Sarah? Sarah wasn't rich. She wasn't important. She was just a dock worker with no family nearby. The more she thought about it, the more it felt like a warning or a trap. Yet when she checked on Lena in the small bedroom, the woman was asleep, breathing softly, looking fragile but alive. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the streets were empty. The colony air smelled of metal and wet stone. Sarah made breakfast, simple bread and synth coffee, and offered some to Lena. For the first time, Lena smiled. "Just a little. You don't have to keep me here," Lena said. "It's dangerous." Sarah frowned. "Dangerous for who?" she asked. "For both of us." Lena replied, her eyes darkening. "My husband. He's not done." Sarah felt a chill run through her. The alien man's voice echoed in her mind. "She is yours now," he had said. It didn't sound like a gift. It sounded like a curse. Outside, in the shadow of the nearby towers, a figure was watching their door. He stood perfectly still, and his eyes glowed faintly in the morning light. The rain was falling hard on New Horizon. A human colony world on the edge of alien space. Sarah stood at her small metal door, listening to the wind slam against the building walls. She had been alone for months, working long hours at the mining port, living a life that felt too quiet. She never expected that tonight would change everything. The knock came suddenly. 3 loud bangs that echoed through her small living space. She froze, her heart beating faster. No one visited her at this hour. She stepped closer to the door, pressing her ear against the cold metal. Outside, the wind roared, but there was something else, a voice, low and urgent, calling her name. When she opened the door, she saw him, a tall, alien man, skin pale like moonlight. Dressed in a dark, weather-worn coat, his eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. The way some alien races carried their own inner light in his arms was a woman, human but covered in bruises and dirt. Her clothes were torn, her hair matted. Her breathing weak. "She is yours now," the alien man said, his voice cold and sharp. Sarah stared at him, confused and angry. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "She is my wife," he said. "Or was, until today, she has." A dirty heritage, the words came out like poison. Sarah felt her stomach twist. She knew what that meant in this part of the galaxy. Dirty heritage was a cruel term for people with mixed human-alien blood. The alien man looked down at his wife like she was nothing. Then, without another word, he pushed her toward Sarah, turned, and walked away into the storm. Sarah caught the woman before she fell. Her skin was cold. Her eyes half closed. Sarah pulled her inside, shutting the door against the howling wind. She could still hear the alien man's footsteps fading away. It felt like the sound of something important leaving or something dangerous just beginning. For a moment, Sarah just stood there, looking at the woman now sitting weakly on her floor. She could see the shape of alien features in her face, slightly longer eyes, a faint shimmer to her skin. She must have been beautiful once, before the neglect, before the abandonment. Sarah poured her a cup of warm water and sat beside her. "What's your name?" Sarah asked softly. The woman's lips trembled. "Lena," she whispered, her voice so quiet it almost vanished in the hum of the room heater. Lena looked around the small home, as if trying to decide if she was safe. Her hands shook as she held the cup. Sarah could see the scars, some old, some fresh. She wanted to ask what had happened, but she also knew that sometimes it was better to let the silence breathe first. Hours passed. Outside, the storm kept pounding against the colony buildings. Sarah gave Lena her bed and sat on the couch, unable to sleep. She kept thinking about the alien man's expression, the way he had spoken, like Lena was some kind of unwanted object. But why bring her here? Why to Sarah? Sarah wasn't rich. She wasn't important. She was just a dock worker with no family nearby. The more she thought about it, the more it felt like a warning or a trap. Yet when she checked on Lena in the small bedroom, the woman was asleep, breathing softly, looking fragile but alive. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the streets were empty. The colony air smelled of metal and wet stone. Sarah made breakfast, simple bread and synth coffee, and offered some to Lena. For the first time, Lena smiled. "Just a little. You don't have to keep me here," Lena said. "It's dangerous." Sarah frowned. "Dangerous for who?" she asked. "For both of us," Lena replied, her eyes darkening. "My husband is not done." Sarah felt a chill run through her. The alien man's voice echoed in her mind. "She is yours now," he had said. It didn't sound like a gift. It sounded like a curse. Outside, in the shadow of the nearby towers, a figure was watching their door. He stood perfectly still, and his eyes glowed faintly in the morning light.
The underground chamber was huge. Blue crystals glowed from the walls, their light dancing on the surface of an underground lake. John had never seen anything like it. The air was warm. Filled with the sound of dripping water, the keepers moved quickly, leading Lyra to a platform in the center. John followed, still holding his rifle. Every shadow seemed to move, even here, deep below the ground. He didn't feel safe. The keeper leader stopped and turned to face him. "You are far from your colony now, human," he said. "This is one of the last sanctuaries of the old bloodlines." Lyra stepped onto the platform. Symbols on the stone began to glow beneath her feet. She looked both calm and uneasy. John couldn't decide which was stronger, her fear or her determination. "What's going on?" he asked. The keeper leader looked at him. "She must be marked in our way. Wow. So the hunters cannot track her scent." A low hum filled the air as the crystals around the chamber pulsed. But before the ritual could finish, the walls trembled. The blue light flickered from the far side of the lake. Something dark and fast broke through the crystal walls. A hunter, but not like the others. This one was taller, with armor of black and gold. Its red eyes burned brighter. It moved. Without sound, the keepers froze. The leader's voice was tense. "Shadow Hunter." John had no idea what that meant. But from the way the keepers gripped their staffs tighter, it was worse than bad. The Shadow Hunter stepped onto the platform, its head turning slowly toward Lyra. The glow under her feet stopped. John didn't think. He raised his rifle and fired. The shot hit the hunter's armor with a sharp crack. But it didn't even slow down. Instead, the creature turned its gaze to John. He felt something push inside his head. Cold, sharp thoughts. His knees almost buckled. The hunter was speaking into his mind. "Human. Why do you protect her?" John gritted his teeth. He didn't know the answer. Not fully. But he said the first thing that came to him, "Because someone has to." The hunter tilted its head. Then it moved too fast to see. 1 second it was standing still. The next, it was right in front of him. A black blade formed from its arm, rising toward his chest. Before it could strike, Lyra screamed. Her hands flashed with light. A wave of pure energy exploded outward. The hunter was thrown back across the chamber, crashing into the crystal wall. The blue glow in the chamber shifted to white. John stared. At her, her eyes burned like fire. "I didn't want you to see this," she whispered. The keepers looked stunned. One of them said in a low voice, "Half-blood." With the royal gift, the Shadow Hunter stood again, cracks in its armor glowing like molten metal. But it didn't attack this time. It looked at Lyra, then at John. "This changes nothing," it said inside their minds. Then it stepped backward, into the shadows, and vanished. The keepers began speaking quickly in a language John didn't understand. Lyra stepped off the platform, her hands still trembling from the energy she released. John grabbed her arm. "What was that?" She looked away. "It's why they will never stop hunting me." The keeper leader finally turned to John. "She is more dangerous than you realize. Blood holds the key to something the Torvian Empire fears." John's grip tightened on his rifle. "Then tell me what it is." The leader hesitated. "It is not my place to say. But you will find out soon. The hunters will call others. And the Shadow Hunter will return. We cannot keep you here. Your presence weakens the wards." John didn't like the sound of that. "Where are we supposed to go?" "The colony's not safe. There is a human stronghold far from here," the leader said. "It is built into the bones of a dead starship, hidden even from the Empire." John looked at Lyra. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. "I'll go where you go," she said. He nodded. The keepers gave them a small sphere of crystal. "This will guide you," the leader said. "Follow where it points, and do not stop. And human, if she uses her gift again, you must be ready for what follows." John didn't ask what that meant. He just took Lyra's hand. The two of them stepped onto a narrow bridge leading out of the chamber, above somewhere far beyond the rock. The storm still raged. John had a feeling the real danger was just beginning, and somewhere in the forest above. The Shadow Hunter waited, watching, planning. The tunnels twisted for miles. John and Lyra followed the glowing crystal sphere the keepers had given them. Its light pulsed slowly, pointing them toward the far end. The air grew colder. Drops of water fell from the ceiling, echoing like distant footsteps. They moved in silence for hours. John kept his rifle ready, eyes on the shadows. Every time the tunnel turned, he expected the red glow of a hunter's eyes to appear. But nothing came that made him more nervous. He knew from war experience when the enemy is quiet, they are planning something worse. Lyra walked behind him, her footsteps light. Her faint glow was dimmer now. "You should rest," John said over his shoulder. She shook her head. "If I sleep, I'll see them," she whispered. "Who?" "Hunters." "In my dreams," he didn't answer. They reached a fork in the tunnels. The sphere's light swung left, but from the right came a soft hum like the alien ship engines he'd heard before. John hesitated. "We follow the guide," Lyra said. But John looked toward the humming sound. What if that's a shortcut? They turned right. The tunnel opened into a wide cavern. In the center stood something impossible, a human ship. Half buried in rock and dust, it looked ancient. The hull covered in strange writing. Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing the metal. "This is older than the Torvian Empire," she said. John ran his fingers over the strange symbols. He couldn't read them, but somehow they felt familiar. The humming grew louder. Lights flickered inside the ship. Lyra's voice was soft, almost fearful. "It's waking up." A panel on the side hissed open. A narrow ramp extended. John aimed his rifle. But instead of hunters, a thin beam of light scanned them from head to toe. A calm voice spoke in perfect English. Identities recognized. Human DNA confirmed. Access granted. John glanced at Lyra. She looked just as shocked as he was. They stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of dust and metal. Dim lights flickered on, revealing long corridors and control panels covered in dust. The voice spoke again. "This vessel is designated ARC-17. Mission: preserve human lineage after first contact conflict." John froze. First contact conflict. Lyra touched one of the panels. "I've read about it. But Torvian history says humans lost and were forced to hide." The ship's voice replied, "Correction. Humans withdrew voluntarily after securing strategic victory." John stared at the glowing console. "Strategic victory? That's not what we're told." The voice paused. "Information suppression detected. Alien Empire altered historical record." Before he could ask more, the ship's lights turned red. "Warning. Hostile entities approaching." The walls vibrated as if something heavy was walking outside. John moved to the door and peeked through a small crack. The shadow hunter stood there, staring directly at the ship. But it wasn't alone. Two smaller hunters flanked it. Their armor gleaming in the dim light. "They tracked us," Lyra whispered. The voice of the ship spoke calmly. "Defensive systems available, but require human command authorization." John didn't waste time. "Authorize," he said. The ship beeped. Voice command accepted. Activating autonomous defense, the ground shook as hidden panels on the ship's hull opened. Small turrets slid out, humming with blue energy. The hunters charged. The first shot from the turret hit one of them in the chest, sending it crashing into the rock. The second leapt over the beam, slashing at the turret with its blade. Outside, sparks lit up the dark cavern. The shadow hunter didn't attack. It just watched. Its voice echoed inside their heads. "You hide inside your dead. Relics human, but we will break them." John gritted his teeth. The turrets kept firing, holding the hunters back for now, but the shadow hunter's calm made his stomach twist. It wasn't worried. It was waiting then. Without warning, the ceiling above. The ship cracked. Chunks of stone fell, smashing one of the turrets. The shadow hunter stepped forward slowly, like it had all the time in the world. The ship's voice spoke again. "Recommendation. Initiate jump sequence to safe zone." "What's that?" John asked. "Short-range spatial displacement." Lyra's eyes widened. "A teleport." The ship's lights began to flash rapidly. The shadow hunter's red gaze locked on them. "Ow!" John grabbed Lyra's hand. The air shimmered around them. The last thing John saw before the world twisted was the shadow hunter raising its blade and smiling. Without a mouth, when the light faded, they were standing in a massive open space. Above them stretched the curved metal ceiling of what looked like an enormous hangar. Ships of human design lined the walls, dozens of them, and at the far end, A huge banner hung, its fabric old but untouched. It read, "United Earth Defense." John felt a strange mix of fear and pride. They weren't alone anymore, but the shadow hunter was still out there, and it knew where they were going. The ghost's fang cut through space like a shadow. Its black hull blended with the darkness between the stars. From the cockpit, Rhea kept her eyes on the holographic map. They were moving along hidden routes only smugglers and ghosts of the old war knew. John sat behind her, scanning the ship's weapon systems. Lyra sat at the back, staring at the stars. Her glowing eyes reflected the light from the console. "You're quiet," John said. She didn't look at him. "I'm trying." "To remember the palace," she said softly. "The archive we're after is deep inside. Near where I grew up." John leaned forward. "You've been there before?" "Yes, but I was a child. I remember the smell of the crystal gardens. I remember the guards. And the feeling that I was never really welcome." Rhea broke in. "Brace yourselves. We're approaching the first Torvian patrol line." She flicked a switch, and the ship's hull shimmered. The AI in the ship's system spoke calmly. "Cloak engaged. Enemy sensors cannot detect us unless we make direct contact." They drifted past the first patrol. Huge Torvian ships floated like sleeping giants. Their silver hulls glowed faintly in the starlight. John kept his breath slow, his hands tight. Around the console, Lyra's eyes followed every movement of the patrol ships. She didn't speak, but he could feel the tension in her body hours later. The ghost's fang slipped into the atmosphere of the Torvian capital world. The sky was deep gold, the air heavy with a metallic taste. Below them, the city stretched in every direction. Towers of glass and crystal that caught the sunlight and broke it into 1,000 colors. Rhea guided the ship toward a docking bay hidden under one of the old trade districts. "No one looks for trouble here," she said with a grin. They stepped out into the narrow streets. Torvian and alien traders moved between market stalls. Strange smells, sweet, sharp, and bitter, filled the air. John kept his hood low. Lyra covered her glowing marks with a long scarf. If the wrong person saw her, everything would be over. Rhea led them into a dark alley. "This way," she whispered. The alley ended at a sealed metal door. She tapped a code into a hidden panel, and it slid open with a hiss. Inside was a small, dim room filled with maps and strange equipment. A man with a cybernetic eye looked up from his desk. "Rhea," he said, "you brought me trouble again." "This is Corin," Rhea said. "He's our contact here." Corin's eye scanned John and Lyra. When it paused on Lyra, the metal around the lens clicked softly. "You didn't tell me you were bringing her," he said in a low voice. John stepped forward. "We need to get into the palace." "Into the archives," Corin laughed, short and bitter. "But don't just walk into the archives, human. The whole place is built like a fortress, and with her face, they'll see you coming a mile away." Lyra lifted her chin. "I can get it." "Inside," she said. Her voice was steady now. "I still know the old servant passages. The ones they never updated." Corin frowned. "You're serious?" John stepped closer. "We need a way past the outer gates. After that, she can guide us." Corin sighed and reached under the desk. He pulled out a small case and opened it. Inside were 2 silver wristbands. "These are passers. They change the way Torvion scanners read your body. You'll register as palace staff." John took one and slipped it on. It felt cold against his skin. Lyra hesitated before putting hers on. "This doesn't change my face," she said. Corin smiled thinly. "That's your problem." That night, under the cover of the city's glowing night markets, they made their way toward the palace. The massive gates were guarded by Torvian soldiers in silver armor. John's heart pounded as they passed through. The scanner field, the wristbands worked. The guards barely looked at them inside. The palace was even more beautiful than Lyra remembered. The floors shimmered like water. Tall windows looked out over the city, and everywhere. The soft hum of power crystals filled the air. Lyra led them down side corridors, her memory guiding her through narrow doors and hidden staircases. Finally, they reached a small, locked gate deep underground. Beyond it was the archive chamber. John moved to force it open, but Lyra stopped him. She touched the panel, and it unlocked instantly. "They never removed my access." she whispered almost to herself. The archive room was vast. Rows of glowing crystal tablets floated in the air. Each one shimmered with stored light, the history of the Torvian Empire. John stepped forward. Which one do we need? Before Lyra could answer, a voice echoed from the shadows. I knew you would come. The shadow hunter stepped into the light. Its black and gold armor glinted in the crystal glow. Its red eyes fixed on Lyra, and this time it carried no blade. It carried a single glowing crystal, the same size as the ones in the archive. You seek the truth, it said inside their minds. Then take it, but know that truth will destroy you. The shadow hunter stood still. The glowing crystal in its hand pulsed like a living heart. Its red eyes locked on Lyra. John felt his finger twitch near the trigger of his rifle. One wrong move, and this chamber would become a battlefield. What is that? John asked. The shadow hunter's voice slid into their minds. This is the unbroken record of the war you call First Contact? It tells the truth. The Empire buried. Lyra's gaze didn't waver. And you just give it to me?
Ransalobsolacine Sarah well also with silences always a
And humanity? I care for neither. I hunt only for balance. John stepped between them. What's your game? You've been chasing us since the night you came to my door? The hunter's gaze shifted to him. You protect her, yet you do not know what she carries inside her blood. The chamber's crystals flickered. The shadow hunter's voice grew sharper. She is the last bridge between your kind and mine. Her blood could heal the rift, or end both species. Forever, John felt the weight of the moment pressing on him. He glanced at Lyra. She wasn't shaking. She was calm. Give me the crystal, she said. The hunter didn't move. Instead, the sound of heavy boots echoed from behind them. Torvian. Guards flooded into the archive room, silver armor gleaming, rifles raised. John and Rhea swung around, ready to fire. But the shadow hunter didn't attack either side. It simply stepped back into the shadows. Its voice whispered in their minds, choose well. Woman, the guards shouted in their own language. Lyra grabbed John's arm. This way. She hissed. They dove behind one of the tall crystal pillars as bolts of energy lit the room. Rhea fired in short bursts, covering their retreat. The heat from the shots burned the air around them. They sprinted through a side door, the hallway. Twisted upward, John's lungs burned behind them. The guard's footsteps thundered closer. Lyra stopped suddenly. She pulled the glowing crystal from under her scarf. John stared. You took it. He said, I had to, she replied. It's the only copy? The truth of the war, and maybe the only thing that can stop the hunters from killing us all. They burst into an open balcony high above the city. The golden sky was turning dark with approaching storm clouds. Far below, airships moved like insects between towers. Rhea pressed a finger to her cum. Ghost's Fang. We need extraction now. The reply came instantly on your position in 30 seconds. They could already hear the ship's faint hum approaching. But 30 seconds was a lifetime. The first of the Torvian guards charged onto the balcony. John fired, forcing them. To take cover, Rhea launched a smoke grenade. The air filled with thick silver mist. Through the haze, John saw a movement, not the guards. The shadow hunter stepped out from the fog. It was unarmed. It didn't speak. It simply pointed at the crystal in Lyra's hands. Its red eyes glowed brighter than ever. The ghost's fang roared into view. Its side ramp opened. Rhea waved frantically. Move! They sprinted across the balcony, blaster fire tearing into the stone at their heels. John was the first to jump aboard, pulling Lyra in behind him. The shadow hunter reached the edge of the balcony and stopped. It didn't try to board. It just stood there. Its voice echoed one last time in John's mind. You think this truth will unite you? But humans are never more dangerous than when they believe they are right. The ramp closed. The ghost's fangs shot upward into the clouds. The city vanished beneath them. Only when they were back in the quiet of space did anyone speak. John turned to Lyra. Whatever's in that crystal, it better be worth it. Lyra looked down at it. The light inside pulsed faster now, almost like it could hear them. Her voice was steady. It's not just history. It's a plan. Rhea glanced back from the cockpit. A plan for what? Lyra met John's eyes. For the war that's coming. John leaned back in his seat. He knew the shadow hunter was still out there. Watching, waiting, and somewhere. The truth inside that crystal was ready to set fire to everything they knew. The stars ahead looked cold, but John felt the weight of something bigger than survival now. This wasn't just about protecting Lyra. Anymore, it was about deciding what humanity would become. For the first time since the night she arrived at his door, John didn't feel like he was just reacting. Now, they had the initiative, and that made them dangerous. The ghost's fang jumped to light speed. The stars stretched into lines, and the war to come began in silence. The night sky was heavy with silver clouds, and the air smelled of cold rain on the edge of the small human colony near the border forest. John Harris heard the slow hum of an alien craft. He stepped outside, his boots sinking into the wet ground, and looked up. Something was descending, smooth black metal. Almost invisible except for the faint red lights running along its side. John felt his stomach twist. Aliens were rare visitors here, and when they came, they brought trouble. The ship landed with a hiss. Steam rolling across the ground like white snakes, the ramp opened, and a tall figure stepped out, broad shoulders, silver skin that shimmered in the dim light. This was Kor, an alien from the Torvian Empire. John knew him by reputation, cold. Proud and dangerous, Kor's eyes, sharp as glass, scanned the area before he turned back to the ship. He spoke in a deep voice, in perfect English. You. Take her, John frowned. A shadow moved behind Kor. Then she appeared, a woman. Human-looking, but with a faint glow in her eyes, and a strange pattern on her skin. Her hair was dark and tangled, her clothes worn. She looked scared. Kor grabbed her arm, pushed her forward, and said, "She is no longer mine. She is." Dirty heritage John didn't understand, but before he could speak, Kor released her and turned away. The alien ship lifted into the air without waiting for a reply. The roar of its engines faded into the night. The woman stood there, breathing. Hard rain began to fall. John realized she was shivering. He took a step closer. "Who are you?" he asked. Her voice was soft, trembling. "My name is Lyra. I have nowhere else to go." John saw the strange mark on her wrist, a glowing circle with 3 lines inside it. He had seen this before. It was the mark of a Torvian bride. But why would Kor throw her away? He led her inside his small home, the old metal walls shaking slightly in the wind. The warmth of the heater filled the room. Lyra sat near it, staring at the floor. Her hands were thin, but her fingers moved like she was counting something in. Her head, finally, John asked, "What does dirty heritage mean?" She looked up, her eyes deep with fear. "It means, they will come for me." John's chest tightened. "Who will come?" "The hunters," she whispered. She explained in short, broken words in Torvian law. Dirty heritage meant a child or spouse with mixed blood considered unworthy of the Empire. Such people were cast out. But not left alone. The hunters would track them down to erase their bloodline completely. John felt a chill if the hunters came here. They wouldn't just take Lyra. They would kill anyone who protected her. Outside, the wind howled, and a strange hum echoed far in the distance. Lyra's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "Do you hear that?" John did a low, pulsing sound, faint but growing stronger. He grabbed his old rifle and moved to the door. The colony was silent. Too silent. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Lyra stood up and moved closer to him. Her voice shook. "If they find me, they will destroy everything here." John swallowed hard. He didn't ask the question burning in his mind. Why did Kor leave her here? Why with me? Instead, he locked the door and checked the windows. In the distance, something moved between the trees. Tall. Thin shapes with glowing red eyes. The hunters had arrived. The night outside was thick with fog. John's hand tightened. Around his rifle, the old weapon feeling too light for what was coming. The glowing red eyes in the forest did not blink. They moved slowly, side to side, as if studying the house. Beside him, Lyra stood still, her shoulders tense, her faint. Glowing skin pulsed faster with each heartbeat. "Stay behind me," John said. But Lyra shook her head. "They can smell fear. They can taste it in the air," she whispered, her voice barely more than breath. John's jaw tightened. This was no time for riddles. He stepped onto the porch, rain dripping from the roof. The fog swallowed the world beyond a few meters. Shape emerged, tall, insect-like legs bending backward. Armor that seemed to drink the light. Its head was smooth, with no mouth. Only two long vertical slits where the red glow burned. One of the hunters. It carried no weapon that John could see. But he knew they didn't need them. Their hands were sharp, their speed deadly. The hunter stopped just outside the edge of the yard. It tilted its head, looking past John at Lyra. John raised his rifle. "Leave," he said. Though his voice was steadier than he felt, Hunter made a sound like metal scraping against stone. Then it spoke in a deep, broken version of English. "Give her no," John said. The hunter tilted its head again, almost curious. Then it stepped back into the fog. For a moment, John thought it had left. Then the walls of the house shook. Something hit them from the other side. He spun around and saw another shape at the window, red eyes glaring in. "Move." John pulled Lyra toward the back room. The hunters were not here to talk. They were surrounding the house. Wood and metal groaned under heavy strikes. Lyra's voice shook. "They won't stop, not until I'm dead." John's mind raced. The colony was too far for help to arrive in time, and even if someone came, the hunters were faster. He led her down a narrow hallway to a hidden hatch in the floor. "This leads to the old water tunnels," he said. She hesitated. "You'll come too." "Yeah," John said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. He opened the hatch, the smell of damp stone rising up. A loud crash echoed from the front room. The hunters were inside. They climbed down into darkness. The hatch closing above them, the tunnels were narrow, dripping with cold water. John's boots splashed softly. He could hear Lyra's quick breathing behind him. They moved for several minutes, the sound of their footsteps mixing with the distant rumble of the storm. Then ahead, a faint light appeared. It wasn't the pale white of the colony lamps, it was blue, shimmering against the tunnel walls. Lyra stopped, her eyes wide. "That's not human light," she whispered, before John could respond. Figures stepped into view. Not hunters, but other aliens. Tall and cloaked, faces hidden, they carried long staffs that glowed at the tips. The lead figure spoke, human. "Step away from her." John lifted his rifle, but didn't point it. "Who are you?" "We are the Keepers," the figure said. "Protect the bloodlines the Empire seeks to destroy." Lyra's expression shifted from fear to disbelief. "You're real," she said. The Keeper nodded. "You carry the last link to a war the Torvians want forgotten." John looked at Lyra, confused. "What war?" She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "My father was human. My mother was Torvian royalty." John froze. Royalty. No wonder Kor abandoned her. Keeping her meant crossing the Empire's highest law. The Keeper stepped forward. "We must take her now, before the hunters break the old wards around this place." But Lyra shook her head. "I'm not leaving without him," she said, glancing at John. The Keeper paused, studying him. "That choice will bind your fate to hers." "Human." John met Lyra's eyes. "I already opened my door." "To her." "Guess I'm in this now?" A loud metallic scream echoed down the tunnel. The hunters had found the entrance. The keepers moved fast, their staffs glowing brighter. The air around them shimmered as if reality itself was bending. Stay close. The leader said. The walls of the tunnel seemed to ripple, and in an instant, John felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. They were falling, not through air, but through something colder, heavier. Colors swirled like liquid light, and then his boots hit solid stone again. They stood in a vast underground chamber, lit by blue crystals. For now they were safe, but John knew the hunters wouldn't stop, and the question in his mind grew sharper. Why was Lyra worth chasing across worlds?